I, 27 female, screamed at my husband, 28 male, over his hobbies, and now he's changed and I don't know how to fix this. Hey everyone, I need some advice about a situation with my husband. I'm 27 female, he's 28 male, and we've been married for 4 years. He has a room where he keeps all his hobbies: sim racing, aviation setups, soccer analysis tools, Lego sets, music production equipment. Basically, it's his sanctuary. He's super analytical and loves writing down and dissecting things, from sports to politics. He's slightly on a spectrum and very introverted, so he doesn't have close friends. I'm really the only person he shares everything with. He's always inviting me into his space to be part of his interests. I love him and appreciate that he wants to include me, but sometimes I just need some time for myself. Recently, I snapped. I yelled at him, saying some hurtful things that I didn't mean, like how his interests bore me, that he needs to get a social life. I'd even questioned why I married him. I regret every word, but my anger got the best of me and I couldn't control it in that moment. Since then, he's completely changed. He stopped spending time in his room, moved to sleeping on a couch, and barely talks to me. He even ignored our usual tradition of watching our home nation's soccer team play, something he'd never skipped before. Instead, he was working on his laptop, breaking our no work at home rule. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't care about the game and mentioned that maybe he should be more like his father, who's a workaholic and who my husband idolizes. He even added, I don't blame him for divorcing at that age now. I've apologized multiple times, but he just says, it's okay, maybe you're right, and shuts down any attempts I make to talk about his interests. I'm terrified he's considering divorce. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to rebuild trust and help him feel valued and loved again. I don't want to lose him, but I'm unsure how to approach this and make amends. Any advice? Now for the top advice. You didn't just criticize his hobbies. You degraded him, saying he needs a social life and asking why you married him. Did you even try to talk to him frankly before you snapped? Did you tell him that you needed some space? Or did you just stuff it all down until one day you screamed it all out? Instead of apologizing, I suggest that you see if he's willing to go to couples counseling with you, where y'all can work on communication and trying to move past this incident. Seriously, she literally just told him that they have nothing in common, that he is a bore to her, that they can clash on fundamental levels, like the social thing, and outwardly questioned why she married him in the first place. And now she's surprised he's thinking about divorce? Girl, you are the one who put that idea in his head, and then yelled a laundry list of valid reasons for him to leave you. Honestly, I also wonder why you got married. I hope he does get a social life. Maybe he'll meet someone he actually has something in common with. I have a relative who complained to me that her husband was forever in their garage tinkering on an old car. Apparently, he should have been inside talking to her. I asked whether she'd ever thought of going into the garage with some drinks and a chair and chatting with him and reading. She said no, and then pointed out to her that unlike her first husband, at least she knew where to find him during his leisure time. Her first had several girlfriends. She just looked at me for a minute and then stopped complaining. There is a comfortable chair in their garage now, as well as a television and a small bookshelf. I'm no hero, but 20 years later, they're still happily together. Questioning why you married him is a really awful thing to sling at someone, regardless of anger or honesty. You can talk out what you regret saying, but him pulling away is understandable. Right, I was saying there's no way one can come back from saying stuff like that. That is hurtful, and quite frankly puts off a lot of people. I wouldn't even be surprised if he chooses to move out at some point. He's already isolating himself from her, which is step 1. She broke him. It's hard for any man to come back from that. Being truly broken is the worst feeling in the world, and you just feel like you're going through the motions of every day. Every hope, dream, goal, and happiness is gone. It's what I imagine he feels like. Next story. Planning on proposing this weekend, but my 25 male girlfriend, 23 female, gave me an ultimatum to propose. Help? My girlfriend basically told me last night that if she didn't receive a ring by the end of the year, she would break up with me. The problem is, I already have a ring and was planning on proposing on her birthday this weekend. I met my girlfriend in college and we've been together for almost 3 years. This girl is my best friend, and I can't imagine my life without her. I've never felt this way about anyone before. We've talked about getting married and starting a family. The thing is, I've been working on my business and trying to become financially stable to support our future family. My girlfriend knows all of this, which is the crazy part. My girlfriend doesn't have a job currently, and I've been supporting both of us. This isn't a big deal for me since I'm in a position where we can afford to live like this. These past quarters, I've finally started seeing returns from my business. All the hard work I've put in over the past 4 years is starting to pay off. We're on track to have a massive year. My girlfriend has been looking at houses over the past few months, not to buy, but just to see what's out there when we're ready. Everything was set in motion. My girlfriend's birthday is this Sunday, and we're having a party at our place as far as she knows. I had the entire proposal planned out with her best friend. Her best friend was going to bring her to the aquarium where we had our first date. I already talked with the aquarium staff about the proposal. They were going to play our song on the speakers, and I planned to do it in front of the penguin exhibit, her favorite animal. I even hired a professional photographer. I've also already asked her parents for permission to propose. Now I'm in a bad spot. I feel like I'll lose either way. Last night, during dinner, my girlfriend suddenly broke down and started crying. I've never seen her like that before. She told me she doesn't understand why I won't marry her. She said she's been there for me since day one and told me that if I didn't propose by the end of the year, she would leave. At first, I thought maybe she had found out and was messing with me, but I know her really well. Her tears and emotions were genuine. I know her friends are getting engaged and married, and maybe she feels left out or jealous. But I don't want to propose because of an ultimatum. Now I'm not even sure if I want to go through with the proposal on Sunday. All my friends are saying you can't reward this type of behavior, but I'm not sure. I don't know if she just had a breakdown or what. This is the first time I've ever seen her this upset. Are you not sure about doing it this weekend because it will seem forced, or because you no longer are sure you want to marry her? Your answer changes my advice. Yeah, anyone who at 23 is unemployed and living on her boyfriend's dime and then throws an ultimatum about marriage is nuts, honestly. He is barely old enough to propose, and she's not old enough or mature enough to be engaged. 3 years would be a decent time to wait if they were 10 years older, but they are so young. She's lucky he didn't take out the ring and hand it to her and says he's going for a walk. She obviously hasn't discussed this ultimatum idea with her best friend either. Please don't propose this weekend. Give yourself at least a week to think about whether this is what you want for your life. Hold on to the ring, and honestly, if you do decide to propose later, you don't have to do all that fuss. Just give it to her one night after dinner. And if she is upset there's no fuss, tell her you put a lot of effort into it the first time and her ultimatum made you rethink what you wanted. If she's upset there's no fuss after that, it's one more sign maybe she isn't the one. He needs to insist that she works. There is no good reason that she doesn't, and isn't good for either of them to have him financially supporting her. She needs to be gaining work experience, and she needs money to be going toward retirement. Otherwise, in 10 years, he will see half of everything he was going to her, and he will be starting over. That's a bit complicated. Because on one hand, I can understand how you'd want to put things on pause until you can sit down and have a talk about both of your feelings about marriage and engagement timelines. Ideally, it would have been better to do this before she broke down on you, but the second best time is now. On the other hand, there isn't necessarily anything about this sudden ultimatum that necessarily changes your plans. You are planning on proposing to her anyway, well within her timeline expectations, and you could always talk to her later about how you had this proposal planned well before she gave you the ultimatum. In my opinion, have a talk with her as soon as possible about each of your feelings on marriage and wedding timelines, and confirm with her that you're on the same page. Then carry on with the Sunday proposal. Oh, and let us know how it goes. It's also not as if he could throw that entire proposal together in 48 hours with a photographer and everything. And if she thinks so, he's got the receipts. Honestly, bad breakdown worthy conversation, but not a complete deal breaker if the rest of the relationship is okay. I don't really understand why he wouldn't just tell her it was gonna happen and she shouldn't worry about it while she was crying. Why let her girlfriend got wrong out for the sake of his surprise? Now for the update. I want to thank everyone for their responses and advice. One of the questions I'm getting is why my girlfriend doesn't work. She just graduated last year with a degree in biology. Unfortunately, she's been having a difficult time finding a job because we live in a rural area. She's always there for me when I need her help with my business. Honestly, I've already told her that she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. I had a conversation with her best friend last night, and she informed me that she might have said some things to throw my girlfriend off track. I didn't tell her best friend about my girlfriend's breakdown. Since the whole thing happened, my girlfriend has been a bit distant and has been giving me the silent treatment. As of right now, I'm 80% leaning toward going through with the original plan. I still want to marry her, but the ultimatum part is bothering me. Like, how could she say she would leave after everything we've been through together? Her best friend and little sister are flying in tonight for her birthday/proposal on Sunday. Two of my closest friends, who are basically my brothers, are coming also, the ones y'all referring to as idiots. And yes, they are singles. As for why I planned a proposal on her birthday, it's because when her older sister got engaged on her birthday, she told me that's what she wanted. Regarding the ring, I've had it for 2 years already. I bought it when we went to the mall during college and she showed me her favorite ring there. I actually just finished paying off the credit card for it last month. Do I think she's actually going to leave on January 1st? No, I don't think she would actually leave. Knowing her, she might leave for the day, but she'd be right back home before it gets dark. Last story. My 40 female husband, 40 male, has been going to therapy to work on his temper and his therapist reported him to CPS. He's saying he no longer go to therapy because of this. How do I keep him engaged in the therapy needed to do the work? So me, 40 female, and my husband have been together for about 10 years, married for 5 of them. We have 1 child, 3 male. My husband has always had a short fuse, been argumentative, and struggled with managing his anger. It's taken me a long time to convince him to go to therapy. About a year ago, he finally agreed to start. However, it recently became clear that he hasn't been open and honest with his therapist, and I've continually encouraged him to be transparent so he can address his issues. For reference, he's never hit or hurt me or our son. I describe him more as a yeller, someone who tries to avoid conflict by being loud. This isn't a healthy dynamic for the home, so I've been insistent on him seeking help. In rare instances, he has thrown something, never at me or our son. One of these instances was recent, and I told him he needed to be honest with his therapist to help him understand why this is his reaction and to work on healthier responses. He had a session this week and asked to increase the frequency of his sessions. I was relieved that he was being honest and recognized the need for more than the monthly sessions he had been doing. However, today's CPS left a card on my door and wants to talk to me regarding concerning behavior with Dad. Clearly, I know who made a report, and so does my husband. I've already arranged to meet with CPS. But now, the issue I'm facing is that my husband, who was already distrustful of the system and sensitive to the stigma surrounding it, has become even more distrustful. I'm also feeling frustrated because this specific incident was something I'd consider reportable. He threw my son's Play-Doh into the yard after my son played with it on the deck and refused to clean it up. I'm a PhD clinician, so I'm very familiar with the system and extremely protective of my and my son's safety and well-being. While my husband's temper is a current challenge, he has been actively taking steps to work on it. I love him very much, and I love our family. As long as he's committed to making changes, I've agreed to support him. I've made it clear, though, that I will leave if things don't improve because his temper and unpredictability aren't healthy for our home. Now, he's told me that he's going to stop going to therapy because, in his words, this is what happens when I'm honest in session. Does anyone have advice on how to keep him engaged in therapy? I'm feeling a whole host of emotions, mostly sadness that someone seeking help was reported for an anger outburst, reinforcing his distrust in the system and discouraging him from being honest in his self-work. I'm also frustrated that his therapist, who has repeatedly reminded him they're a mandated reporter, didn't feel the need to tell him they would be reporting this particular disclosure. I know it's not required, but I've always operated on that ethical principle with those I've treated. I feel like without his commitment to getting help and working on this, our marriage will fail. I'm also a PhD clinician. So you are aware that a therapist would not call CPS over some yelling. Also, if it wasn't the therapist, he threw it outside, so maybe the neighbors had enough of him flipping out and yelling at his family that they made a phone call. I mean, if he's been like this always, there are plenty of people probably worried about the kid. This is my thought too. Sounds like neighbors have heard lots of frequent yelling and the sounds of things being thrown. That would be my top bet. The kid is 3 years old. There is no reason to scream at a 3-year-old and throw his toys out in the yard. Kids this age need to be talked to in a normal voice and told what they've done wrong. Maybe he gets a timeout. This guy should not be parenting until he gets his anger under control and learns how to be a father. Yup, and to a little child, that kind of behavior tends to kick their nervous system into fight or flight. A rageful caregiver is an existential threat, and a little toddler's brain/body has no way to know that grown-up, who they rely on for basic needs and love, isn't going to physically hurt or abandon them. In fact, even for adults, dealing with someone who is raging out by yelling and throwing things can have a similar effect. It's just that with kids, the consequences tend to be much deeper as it literally shapes how their psyche and nervous system develop. But for example, in many places it is legally considered physical assault to do things like punch walls, throw objects in rage, get up in someone's face while screaming, etc. Even if you never actually hit the other person. If there is threatening behavior that would cause a reasonable fear that the person may physically attack you, that can legally be considered assault. A person's body might react to those things as imminent threats, so even if the person never hits you and only the wall, it still causes harm. Healthcare professionals are required to make referrals if there is an indication of abuse. So it might not have been the therapist who dropped the dime, if what you are saying is true about his behavior. Yes, you are correct. However, the state I'm in requires a 24-hour response to any report. The response was less than 24 hours after his appointment, and he did talk about yelling and throwing the Play-Doh. So while I am using deductive reasoning, you're correct, it could have come from anywhere. But only 3 people know of this specific incident, and my husband and I are 2 of them. And regardless if it was the therapist or not, I'm just really struggling with him dismissing therapy in response to this, rather than him seeing that this is also a product of his temper. I guess he's feeling like how can he trust someone to help him if they'll just keep turning him over to CPS. I've never really sat on both sides of this, I guess, so I'm just stuck. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the newborn is her responsibility and don't bother me about it when she wanted a nap? My wife and I are currently separated. We have to wait 12 months before we can officially divorce. She was supposed to move out but is having trouble finding a place nearby, so custody 50-50 will be easier for our 3 kids. The reason for the divorce? My wife's twin sister asked her to be their surrogate. Apparently they, my wife's sister-in-law and sister-in-law's husband, decided that since they're twins, she was the best option, and that in 3 years should carry another baby for them. This was all planned for weeks behind my back. I'll admit they didn't start anything medically until after telling me. The telling me was basically my wife saying, "This is my body, my choice, and you have 0 say. So either support me or we can divorce." It wasn't as blunt as that, but the longer version still ticks me off. I simply said if she did it, we would get divorced. Well, 4 months later, my wife tells me she's pregnant, and I filed 2 days later. Somehow this shocked everyone. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law did everything in their power to shame/guilt me into changing my mind, but I just told them she is their responsibility now. During the pregnancy, my wife acted like I should step up, like I did during her previous pregnancies, and always got upset when I told her, "If you want 3 a.m. burgers, call your sister." For some reason, this made me the bad guy. She even called my mother to complain about me not stepping up, and then got insulted when my mom pointed out she's pregnant with another man's child. Here's the major issue. Sister-in-law was in a car accident 2 days before my wife had their baby. She's currently in intensive care, and her husband hasn't left her side. Since the accident, my wife has been acting like I should be the baby's father until brother-in-law and sister-in-law can take over. She called me a heartless monster when I wouldn't go with her to the delivery room, and has demanded I help with the baby during the night. I've told her multiple times, call the child's father. He is the parent, and he should be taking care of and bonding with his kid. She always makes excuses for him, so now I just ignore her. Today, I had a day off work and my wife said that since I wasn't doing anything for a few hours, I could watch the baby while she naps and showers. I said no. She started crying, saying she was sorry for going against me with a surrogacy, that she doesn't want to get divorced, and that she desperately needs me to take the baby for just an hour. Again, I said, why don't you call brother-in-law? She didn't answer, just stared at me. So I said, the newborn is your responsibility. Don't bother me about it again, and I suggest you start looking harder for a new place to live. She started screaming at me, calling me names, and saying karma will get me. Then she packed a bag and left with the baby. I'm guessing she's at her mother's because her family and her sister's husband have been calling me all day. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the newborn is her responsibility and not to bother me? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are an unwilling participant in all this. Why should you mop up the mess? Honestly, I just want the divorce to be over with and just raise my kids in peace. You did the right thing by divorcing. She chose the brother-in-law and sister-in-law over her husband and family. You have no need to show her sympathy or compassion. Not the a-hole. She literally told you either you accept it or leave and you left. Now everyone is trying to make you feel bad? You're just doing what she asked. I wouldn't be handling this nearly as well. Unreal that anyone could do this to a partner. Nope. Her body, her choice, and her consequences. It's harsh, but it's true. And his body's his choice. So he can take his body for a nice relaxing day instead of babysitting his soon-to-be ex-wife, but not his child. Not the a-hole, but brother-in-law should be stepping up and taking care of his kid. If sister-in-law dies, he's probably gonna stick your ex with a baby. Well, since she's getting a divorce, brother-in-law can just marry her instead. Problem solved. Nah, now brother-in-law has 2 identical wives. Problem doubled. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being upset that I found out my wife was pregnant via social media? I'm 29 and she is 27. We've been together for 4 years, married for 2, both from the same hometown but currently living in a different city. She's at our hometown for a family event and I stayed back due to work. We've been trying to get pregnant for 3 months and now it's happened. The problem is the way I found out about it. My friend congratulated me by posting a screenshot in our group chat. A screenshot of an Instagram story posted by one of my wife's friends. The post showed my wife crying and hugging some of her friends with the caption, "You are going to be the best mom." I called her right away and she answered pretty quickly, saying, "I have news, babe." All I said was, "I know, you're pregnant." She replied, "Wow, babe, how did you know?" I just said, "Saw it on Insta. Didn't think to call me first, huh?" She said, "What? I didn't post anything." I responded, "Yeah, but your friends did." That's one way to find out I'm going to be a dad. Thanks. And I hung up. I was furious. She kept calling me, but I didn't answer until my sister called shortly after. My sister asked me what was going on because she just arrived at my in-laws' house, and everyone was freaking out, fighting, and my wife was locked up in her room. I told her what happened, and she said, "There's no way she would do that." I replied, "Well, she did." My sister said she was going to find out what was going on. A little later, my sister called me back and explained everything. At that point, I'd calmed down, thinking it was just a crappy friend who decided to post without permission. But my sister filled me in on the details. My wife was late on her period, and while hanging out with a friend, they thought, "What if you're already pregnant?" So they bought a bunch of pregnancy tests, all of which came out positive. They freaked out, told her parents, and then texted some friends in town to come over. From the time she found out to the time her friend posted on Instagram, only 2 hours had passed. My wife told at least 10 people before telling me. For the record, my sister told me that the argument going on when she arrived was because the other friends were upset with the one who posted on Instagram. Apparently, they all thought it was a crappy thing to do and were mad at her. But they also couldn't understand why my wife hadn't told me sooner. I finally called my wife and she was crying. She apologized and said she'd been planning to surprise me, which was why she hadn't told me yet. I was skeptical and pointed out that if she'd really wanted to surprise me, she wouldn't have been ready to tell me right when I called. She went silent, and I told her I needed some time to think. She yelled, saying I couldn't just walk away and that we needed to talk about it. I replied, "Why do we need to talk? So you can lie again?" And I hung up. A ton of people have been messaging me, but I'm honestly exhausted. I don't know why, but this has drained me. I've cried randomly, which is unusual for me. I'm not a crier. This isn't supposed to be a huge deal, but it feels like I've been hit by a truck. My sister sent me a message that really stuck. "Hey, I know this sucks and it was crappy of her, but don't let this ruin it for you. You're going to be a dad. You're going to be an amazing dad. This is great. The only thing keeping me going right now is knowing that I'm going to be a dad. I've dreamed of this, and all I hope is that this baby is healthy. I'll probably swallow my pride and pretend I'm fine just to avoid making my wife too emotional during the pregnancy. But I'll do that tomorrow. Tonight, I'll just sulk." That's some crappy behavior indeed from that one friend. Who the heck steals a pregnancy announcement? Also, she just took a pregnancy test. There is no way to know if that embryo will make it past the first trimester. That's why most people wait to announce. That friend is either the stupidest girl on the planet or she did it on purpose. Damn, that actually sucks. Only way I would be on your wife's side here is if she was planning on doing some kind of surprise to get your reaction, but you catching her on a lie pretty much ends that possibility. All I can say is that I hope your baby is healthy and good luck with fatherhood. See, I consider that too. Except anybody that's planning a surprise wouldn't tell another 9 people. And they would swear the friend that talked them into taking the pregnancy test to secrecy. But nope, she went on to tell 8 or 9 more people, including going to her parents. She texted people to come over because she was pregnant, but she couldn't text the baby's father? That's like every red flag wrapped up together. Not the a-hole. And my thing is, she was so excited, she told everyone, but you. Called her parents and random friends, but not you. Her husband, partner in life, and father. I would be hurt, and also it would make me question things. You should have been one of her first thoughts, not last. He wasn't even last. She never called him. He had to call her. Too much social media. There is a certain type of person. I choose not to share pictures of my little ones online as I want them to have control over what is shared. But they have ended up online because my sister-in-law couldn't just enjoy a family get-together without sharing it with her followers who most likely don't care. Then I have a different sister-in-law who is intent on creating an alternative life on social media where everything is perfect. So when my kids go to play with their cousins, they all have to have a forced photo shoot whenever they do anything. Just getting kids to look at a camera at the same time is nearly impossible when you have more than 1 under 5 in the mix. So it always leads to tears. I remember my nephew crying on his 2nd birthday because he just wanted to play, but he wasn't allowed to until his mom had got the perfect photo of him standing next to the perfectly coordinated balloons and tablecloth. People are stupid. Edit/mini update. I posted this into the Reddit void, thinking nothing of it, and woke up to thousands of comments and dozens of DMs. Holy smokes. Thank you so much for caring. Just to clarify a couple of things. 1. Do I think the baby might not be mine? Classic Reddit, lol. No chance she cheated. She works from home and we have some home security cameras inside the house, so that's not happening in our house. She does not do girls' nights. Her best friend in the city we live in is a female coworker of mine, and we hang out. The 3 of us, often. They text each other a lot, but almost never hang out one-on-one. And if they do, it's at our house with me in the next room. Also, my wife is the clingiest person alive. Like when I'm at work, she texts me every 30 minutes. And when I'm at home, she's always at least in the same room I'm in, if she isn't cuddling up to me. When we are out, she's always holding my arm or my hand. Literally does not leave my side. I honestly actually love it most of the time. I feel loved. But it is too much sometimes. And we had a fight about it weeks ago. I even questioned if this fight was the reason she didn't tell me right away, but it's probably not it. 2. About her friends. They're all very nice people. I've known them for a long time now. My sister is part of the friend group, and some of them have been friends since they were like 12. My wife is the only one that lives in a different city, so they always hang out a lot when she is in town. I cannot emphasize enough how out of character this whole situation is for her. She has many flaws like every other person, but being inconsiderate is not one of them. That's why I woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling like I'm actually completely wrong on this, because she would not do this on purpose. There is no way. So I sent her a text just saying that everything is fine and that I will drive the 4 hours down there to talk. She was actually awake and asked if she could call. She did and said she wanted to come home. I said that I was going over there to pick her up. She asked, "Are we okay?" I just said yes, and she started to cry. I told her that I'm very happy and I'm dying to see her, but we will need to talk about it. She calmed down a bit after that. That's when I opened the post again and saw all the comments. I asked for a day off and my boss was fine with it, so I'm actually going to my hometown right now. I will update when it's all settled. Last story. Would I be the a-hole if I disowned my parents after my mom refused to take care of me after I give birth? So I, 28 female, I'm 30 weeks pregnant with my first child and I'm about to move to another state. My mom has this thing where she takes care of my siblings when they give birth until they recover. She did it for my older sister and my brother's wife, so I thought she would do the same for me. But a week ago, she told me that she couldn't because it's too far away. We got into a fight about it, and I told her to get out of my house. Now we're not talking. Before you judge me and say that my mom isn't obligated to take care of me, let me explain that it's not about her taking care of me. It was never about that. I've always been the one child in the family that nobody really cares about. My parents claim they love and treat us all equally, but it's painfully obvious they love me a little less than the others. I even thought I might be adopted. But nope, I'm 100% theirs. It's always about how my other siblings are doing or how my mom and dad are suffering. But it's never about me. It has never been about me. My birthdays? They rarely celebrated them because my mom and dad either forgot or just threw something together at home and called it a party. My high school graduation party? Nope. My parents had already spent a lot of money on my big brother's college graduation party, so they couldn't afford one for me. They said they'd make it up to me, but did they? Take a wild guess. If you guessed no, congrats, you're right. They helped cover my siblings' wedding expenses, but when it came to my wedding, they said, since your husband comes from a good family, we don't need to help with expenses. Not my words, theirs. I've always been the one who listens to my mom and dad vent about their rough days, or who helps my mom because my older siblings have a lot of schoolwork, or my younger siblings are too young to help. They always tell me I'm a good daughter, but I'm never the one they brag about to their friends. I've done everything I could to make them proud, but my achievements have always been below my siblings. I've tried talking to them about how I feel multiple times, but all I ever got was a scolding about how I was getting spoiled. I hated my life until I finally moved out, but I never had the courage to let go of them completely thinking they would change. Well, my mom just proved me wrong. Mind you, my older sister lives across the ocean, but my mom decided that taking a 10+ hour flight to another continent twice wasn't too hard. Yet suddenly, a 4-hour car ride to my house is too much? Especially when I'm in a place where I don't know anyone except my husband. I'm so tired of being put below everyone else. I've decided I'll make things right between us before I leave because I don't want to end things on a bad note. But once I'm settled in my new house, I'm cutting all contact. I don't have the energy to deal with this anymore. Besides, I have my amazing husband with me, and we're building a family where I'll be loved and appreciated for who I am. Note, I'm the 3rd out of 5 children. Not the a-hole. Tell her you can't keep in touch. It is too far away. It's not just about OP's mom refusing to help. It's about a lifetime of feeling neglected and undervalued. Cutting contact is a form of self-care in this case. It sounds like OP been trying to earn their approval her entire life, and they've consistently let her down. She deserves to feel loved and supported, especially during such a vulnerable time in her life. Not the a-hole. Yes, I agree with you. Make nice with your mom while you're visiting this time and minimize contact when you get back to your own home. It could be that your mother wants you to beg and plead. "Oh, mommy, pretty please. Come help me. I need you." But my reaction is, F that game playing. Put your energy on your husband and build a new support network where y'all live now. Not the a-hole. Put them on a strict information diet. Stay off socials. Inform your husband and his family that you want nothing posted on social media. Do not let them know when the baby is born or when you go into labor. Do not answer the phone, respond to email, texts, etc. Put them on a ban list too at the hospital if you have to. Gather more evidence of them singling you out. Then when asked by others, you give them the full story. Maybe shame will cure them. Not the a-hole. It sounds like your parents have taken you for granted, and now they're doing the same thing to your child? No. Stand proud of your decision. The people you allow in your child's life should be people who value them. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to get the heck out of my life and go attend his precious stepdaughter's wedding? My dad wasn't there for me growing up. He and my mom were 22 mom and 25 him when they had me. He didn't even pay child support for the first 7 years of my life. He was ordered to, but he always found a way to dodge support until eventually he stopped dodging and paid it monthly, along with the arrears he owed. When I was 4, he met his wife and became a father to her daughter, who is 16 months younger than me. When I was 16, he had a change of heart and reached out to establish a relationship with me, fighting to show me he really wanted it. I hesitantly agreed. He was trying really hard and even paid my mom a huge lump sum of the owed child support. What sort of won me over was how he handled his stepdaughter. She wanted me to live with them and wanted a brother because my dad and his wife had 3 daughters together plus his stepdaughter. They consider each other father and daughter because her biological father isn't in her life. She was really pushy with me about moving in with them, insisting my mom kept me from my dad and their family. This was not true, but she wanted to paint my mom as the bad guy. My dad told her she was wrong. He sat her down with me there and told her he had been a bad dad to me, that he made those choices, and that I didn't need to move in. He held his ground even when she pouted and acted like a baby about it. I never wanted to be her brother, and I don't like her. We have a lot of bad blood because she knows I don't want to be her brother and feels I was wrong not to move in with them. I find her entitled, selfish, and bratty. But my dad didn't push me for it or make it seem like I was wrong for not wanting to leave my mom, who had raised me solo my whole life up to that point. He even paid for my college and was there when I needed him. My relationship with him improved, but his stepdaughter and his daughters always came before me. That was something I always felt. Over the last year, things have been different between us. He has wanted me to be more involved in his family and get closer to his stepdaughter. He told me I've had 10 years to embrace everyone and become a full member of the family, instead of treating his stepdaughter like an enemy. I told him it wasn't going to happen. There was drama a few months ago because rumors were circulating that his stepdaughter's boyfriend cheats on her a lot. There's no proof to my knowledge, but the rumors show no sign of stopping, and more keep coming out as the months pass. I got engaged last year, and a month ago, my fiancé and I set the date. My dad and his stepdaughter did a Zoom call with me about it, where she asked me to give up the date because she's now engaged and wants to get married on that date. I said no. She whined, and I ignored her. She went ahead and booked the date anyway, then called my dad via Zoom. He called me and said she needed my dad to give her away. She insisted I had to find another date. I told her to buzz off and left the call. My dad called me and said he needs to be there for her and doesn't want to miss my wedding, so could I please move the date? To me, it was a step too far. I told him to get the heck out of my life and attend his stepdaughter's wedding then. I understood he raised the girls and they came first for him, but after all the fighting he did to have a relationship with me, putting this girl before me was too much, especially for something I booked first. Besides, he made it clear whose wedding he'd attend. My dad has tried to reach out despite what I said, and his wife sent a long email the other night saying I should have compassion and understanding for him. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Nope, and time to block her and her mother. Compassion and understanding for him? You weren't the one who put him in this situation. I think I'll block them all. Better for me. He chose her. That he is pushing you to change your date versus pushing her to change her date speaks volumes. And stepsister only chose that specific date because OP had already chosen it. Stepsister knew dad would choose her over OP, and this was just the opportunity to prove it. Not the a-hole, and I'm willing to bet that the stepsister's wedding doesn't take place, and dad will try to come to yours. Do not let him. Block him at a lot of them, and have a beautiful wedding and a long and happy marriage. Or maybe the affair will be exposed at the wedding and she'll be humiliated. I'm petty enough to hope that happens. Not the a-hole. You set your date first. She set hers on the same date to force her father into choosing her. He did. There is nothing for you to do here, except recognize how awful they all are and choose not to keep this drama in your life. I will go no contact with a lot. That's what I plan to do. I already told him to get the heck out of my life, and I meant every word of it. Have you considered assuming your mom's surname before the wedding? If you don't already have it, that is. I think it'd be a good idea. Get rid of that toxicity once and for all. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother and his family stay at my place for Christmas because they borrowed my dog's toy last year? Last Christmas, my brother, his wife, and their 2 kids stayed at my house for the holidays. It was a bit chaotic, but I was happy to host. I have a golden retriever, Max, who is the love of my life and a huge part of my family. He has a favorite stuffed toy, a beat-up duck he's had since he was a puppy. This toy is his comfort object, and he always carries it around. During their stay, my niece, 6 at a time, got very attached to Max's duck. I told her it was Max's favorite toy and even showed her how much she loved it. When they left, I realized they had taken it home with them. I texted my brother thinking it was a misunderstanding and asked for it back. He said my niece cried about leaving it, so they let her keep it. I was pretty upset and explained that it wasn't just a random toy. It was Max's favorite. He said, "It's just a dog toy. Go buy another one." I told him they needed to send it back, but they refused. I even offered to buy my niece a new duck toy that looked the same, but they still said no because she was too attached to it now. Max was visibly sad for weeks afterward. He looked for his duck every day, and it broke my heart. I ended up scouring the internet to find the exact same duck, but Max never loved it as much as the original. Fast forward to this year. My brother asked if they could stay again for Christmas, and I told him no. He was shocked and asked why. I reminded him about the duck incident and how disrespectful it was. He said I was being petty and holding a grudge over a dog toy. My parents and other siblings are now calling me the Grinch and saying I'm punishing my niece for something she didn't understand at a time. To me, it's not about the toy. It's about the principle and a blatant disregard for my boundaries. If they couldn't respect something so small, why would I trust them to respect my home again? Am I the a-hole? If only your poor niece had decent parents who would help her understand. Children who are never taught right from wrong have such a hard time learning how to become decent members of society. You aren't reacting to your niece's mistake. She was just a child. You are protecting yourself and your family from adults who are devoid of compassion for others and have shown that they have no respect or regard for their own family when it inconveniences them. They have shown they can't be trusted in your home or car or allowed unsupervised access to basically anything. Because of their own choices, they have to deal with the consequences and can pay for a hotel or let someone else host them. Not the a-hole. She was 6. She was more than old enough to understand too. Not the a-hole. Why the heck would anyone want their kid to keep a goddamn toy that has been slobbered on and chewed by a dog? Freaking gross. Also, saying I'm punishing my niece for something she didn't understand at a time. If your 6-year-old doesn't understand, the toy is not yours, we can't take it home, then you have severely spoiled your child. I understood it by 4, probably. Definitely by 5 and certainly by 6. Exactly. They ruined that perfect opportunity to teach their child that 1, she can't have everything she wants, and 2, that she just can't take other people's things. Bad parents. They don't deserve treats for their bad behavior. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting so mad that my dad gave my half-sister something my mom left me? My mom died when I, 17 male, was 6. She left me a handmade box with my name on it, along with a letter tied to it for me to read when I was old enough. She also included a box and everything inside it in her will, explicitly stating that it was 100% meant to be mine and only for me, not for my dad or anyone else. My dad was supposed to keep it safe for me, so he kept it in his room. My dad has a daughter who's 8. His relationship with her mom broke down, and he has full custody of her, so we all live together. A few weeks ago, I noticed my half-sister had my mom's 3 bracelets that were inside my box. I asked her about it, and she said I wanted her to have them. I confronted my dad, and he told me it was a nice gesture, and he wanted me to let her keep them. He said I wouldn't wear them, so what's the harm? I got mad and told him those bracelets were my mom's, and I'm her only child. My dad told me that didn't matter. I said it does matter. I pointed out that his daughter is not my mom's child, and isn't who I would want to have them in the future. He told me I should consider it an act of accepting my half-sister, and that I don't make enough of an effort to do that. I told him this was the way to get me to accept her. We argued about it. I've been mad ever since, and I made my half-sister give the bracelets back. She resisted and cried, which pissed my dad off, but I never want her to have them. My dad told me my anger isn't fair and that I should look at the bigger picture. He said I should understand he still loves my mom and wanted my half-sister to have something from her. I told him to give her something he kept, not something my mom made clear was meant for me. I told him it couldn't be clearer, and his daughter doesn't deserve anything when she's not my mom's child. My dad told me my anger isn't right, and that I should reconsider my stance. He said being so angry about it shows I don't care about him or my half-sister. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Those are yours and you have every right to decide what to do with them. Your father is being emotionally manipulative. He could legally open a lawsuit that his father stole from him and failed as the executor of the will. If your dad thought this was in any way right, he would have talked to you before giving the items away. They weren't his to give, and he lied to his daughter as well, because she thought you wanted her to have them. The comment you made about giving her something from your dad's pile of memories was spot on. Your dad betrayed your mom's memory by disregarding her will. He betrayed you by building some delusion that his dead wife would approve of him stealing from her child. You can love someone and lose respect for them, and you're rapidly losing respect for your selfish, untrustworthy excuse of a father. Your half-sister has a living mother. When she passes away, the kid can have whatever she wants from that woman. Until then, you're going to protect and treasure what your mom left you, because your dad has proven you can't trust him. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. This was something your mom left for you. Tell your dad this is something for you to pass on to your children, not a paternal half-sister. I told him that, and he said I could still give it to my half-sister, and it would be just as meaningful. I told him it wouldn't be for me. She's 8. Take it from her, hide it, and deny it. She'll forget, and it will demonstrate to your useless father that he shouldn't give things to an 8-year-old. I already got it back, but she refused at first. She's still upset about it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not saving the house so my brother can buy it? There is a lot to this situation, but I'll try to keep it brief. I, 25 female, have a mom, grandma, and great-grandpa who all lived on the same property. My mom and grandma share a house, while my great-grandpa had his own house next door. He sadly passed away about 2 years ago and the house went to my grandma. Even before my great-grandpa died, we had talked about me eventually buying the house and half the property from my grandma. We initially thought this would happen when I was around 30, but you can't really predict the death of a loved one that precisely. I had recently moved to a different city to be with my boyfriend, but he also agreed we would move back once we're ready to settle down. While my grandma was grieving and contemplating whether she wanted to sell, my mom suggested my little brother Luke, 19, and his girlfriend Emma, 20, move in temporarily. This would give them some privacy and, in turn, help maintain the house. No renovations or anything involving money. This year, my grandma decided she wants to sell the house next year because she needs money for her own renovations. Yesterday, I visited my family, and my grandma, mom, and I set a date to discuss how to proceed, cost, responsibilities, etc. That's when my brother interrupted, saying he should be involved since he's also interested in the house. This was the first I'd heard of it. But apparently my mom already knew. She said our main concern should be keeping the house in the family and suggested Luke and I could discuss later who will live in it and buy my grandma out. I told him I intended to let Luke and Emma live there rent-free for a few years while I focus on my career before settling down. However, I made it clear I would not invest in something unless I intended to make it my own one day. Property is expensive, and my boyfriend and I want to start investing now before we have major financial responsibilities, like children. My brother argued that since he and Emma have already been living there, it's unfair to expect them to leave when I decide to move back. I told him the alternative. He pays the full amount, he's a student and doesn't have a part-time job, next year, or grandma sells it to a stranger. My brother and mom called me selfish, saying I'd get the money back if he eventually bought it for me. However, for me, it's not just about the money, it's also about the financial strain. Paying off a loan would mean tightening our budget and effectively losing money due to inflation. It's true, I'm the only one able to pay my grandma to keep the house from being sold to strangers, but I feel they're putting an unfair expectation on me and guilt-tripping me by calling me selfish. Am I in the wrong here? I'd like some outside opinions. Let me rephrase their actual demand of you to the bare truth. You have to buy this house for us to live in however long we want, with no obligation to you except a vague statement about buying it from you eventually. Because family. See how crazy that is? Absolutely not, unless you are independently wealthy and have no issues with supporting your brother indefinitely. Given his response to your saying you'll want the house eventually if you're the one buying it, essentially, how dare you ask us to move out of our house before we're ready? I suspect you'll never get him out. Let the family handle the sale process, or you'll forever be labeled as the sibling who evicted their own brother. Your brother wants you to subsidize his life. Your family's desires shouldn't be used to put you in a crippling financial position. Don't let your mom and brother manipulate you with emotions. And don't come to a verbal agreement. Being screwed over in this situation could impact you for decades. If you're in the US, your boyfriend may be unprotected unless he's part of a contract or you're married. Asking him to contribute financially could also be risky. This isn't some game, and your mom has shown she's willing to play games to get what she wants. You cannot trust them to care about your financial interests when the time comes to sort it out. We would definitely get everything in writing and approved by a lawyer. I love my family, but the I never said that game is strong. My boyfriend and I aren't married yet, but we intend to write him into the contract, as well as stipulate what happens if we split. Am I the a-hole for not meeting my dying father? I have absolutely no contact with my parents. I don't talk to them, I don't visit them. To be honest, I'd rather never see them again in my life. This might sound bad, but I do have my reasons. I was kicked out of my parents' house the day after my 18th birthday. My father claimed that an 18-year-old is already an adult and they should be able to live by themselves. Just a heads up, I was still in high school when that took place. I worked part-time, but I couldn't afford housing. I slept on the streets for about a few weeks until I found a shelter. Not only that, but I had too many rough days after that. The streets are no place for anyone, especially someone that young. Through the help of some NGOs, I managed to finish school, get into a technical course for programming, and get a decent job. Now, 10 years after that, I just graduated college. I saved up to actually do that. However, I can't forgive my parents. I never contacted them and they didn't contact me. That was until yesterday. Somehow my family, uncle, got my phone contact and sent me a message. My father is extremely sick, and it is likely that he might pass away in the next few days. My uncle told me that my father wanted to see me one last time and asked if I could go there. I said I would not go. I absolutely resent and bear a grudge against my father and mother. They kicked me out, and she did absolutely nothing to stop it. As you might assume, my uncle started to get heated and called me heartless, ungrateful, and an a-hole among other things. And I'm pretty sure most of my family feels the same way about me. Honestly, I'm only asking here for my sanity's sake. I will not be meeting them, but I understand that the man is dying. And by not going, I'm denying something to a dying man, which might make me an a-hole. However, even if it does, I do not care. I'd rather be an a-hole than see those two ever again. Now for the top comments. He's an adult. He's old enough to die on his own. F your uncle and F your dad. Not the a-hole. And where was this uncle when your parents threw you out? Did he stand up for you against your parents then? Honestly, where was anyone of Opie's family? Let's be honest, they probably have no clue what happened and were told an alternate reality from the parents. Came here to say this. The parents probably lied and said he left on his own and went no contact. Opie, you're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. The day he kicked you out is the day you were no longer his child. And just because he's dying does not mean you have to forgive him for what he did. You have every right to not visit him, and he's most likely not gonna apologize and try to justify what he did. He'd probably try to take credit. If I hadn't put you in the streets, you never would have developed the initiative and work ethic to succeed. Now change my bad pen. Now change my bad pen. He's only doing this for himself and maybe have a good/better image. I know what I did was wrong, but I'm asking for forgiveness type of thing. And if he wasn't dying, he would have never tried to reach out to OP. 100% not the a-hole, but I'm a bit of a vindictive witch at times, so I'd visit, just once, to tell your dad that you wanted to check that he's actually dying, and will never forgive him and that you hope this haunts him until his last breath. Earth-scorched and salted. But you may need therapy if you go this route. In fact, you may need therapy regardless. Good luck, OP, and look after yourself. I like your style. Personally, I thought that there would be many nights when things were awful and OP may have retained hope his parents would regret their decision and help him by taking him out of the hellish situation he was in. So 1. I'd vacillate over the not going, maybe and maybe not, until I heard he was really sick. 2. Then agree to go and cancel a few times to get their hopes up. 3. And when they were about to figure out, say, for sure going today at X. 4. Call from on the way there and ask to be in speakerphone so dad and mom could hear my voice. 5. Then tell them, for many nights I had false hopes you would regret kicking me out and be kind, find me and offer help. But you never did. I wanted you to know the feeling of that hope being ripped away before you died. I never intend to visit. 6. And maybe laugh. But maybe that's a tad much. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being honest with my parents about my childhood? I, 24 female, was poor growing up. We had to rough it throughout my childhood and teenage years. College was funded solely by scholarships and awful part-time jobs. I don't hold any resentment towards my parents over this, but it was hard at a time. I think I would still be struggling now had things been different. I met my partner, 31 male, during my sophomore year and we've been together for just under 5 years. His family was in the exact opposite financial situation as mine. He has an established position in his father's company. He has since we met, and works remotely. Since my graduation in May, we've spent almost the entire summer with his parents, sightseeing and bouncing around to their different vacation homes. It was such a wonderful experience. I never thought I'd experience something like that, but the adjustment was easier than I expected. As we headed back home this week, we stopped by to visit my parents, 45 female and 47 male. While there, I mentioned that this summer felt like what all the summer breaks of my childhood should have been, and how excited I was for the future when my partner and I have children and can give them this treatment. My mother apparently took incredible offense to what I had said, and said they had done the best they could for me as a child. I replied that I never claimed any differently. The argument ended with us still not seeing eye to eye, and my husband and I made an early departure than we had been planning on, thanks to the tension in the house that remained. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You can be honest about your childhood by saying you were poor. Saying my childhood should have been like this when your parents didn't choose to be poor is a huge a-hole move. It was just so easy to adjust. Someone please take the silver spoon out of Opie's mouth. You're the a-hole and ungrateful. Not everybody marries rich. Your parents loved you despite you draining their income, didn't they? I'm sure they would have had a more lavish lifestyle without having to raise you, but they did the best they could for you. Damn, imagine treating your own parents like this. I will never understand how people can be like this. The only thought in my mind is getting to a situation where I can do things for my mother who did her best with 3 children after a nasty divorce. We didn't have the picture-perfect childhood, but she did her best to provide for us, and we had it better than most people would have in our situation, and the only thought in my mind is, how am I ever gonna be able to repay my mother? You're the a-hole. What your summer breaks should have been? How utterly insensitive and hurtful. Your parents didn't choose to be poor. No one does. It's shocking that you don't see how unkind what you said was. Not just insensitive, but entitled as heck. Summer break should be a time kids get a break from school, and that's about it. The vast majority of people never jet off anywhere. I know mine were more like trips to the lake to swim or maybe camping. We got on a plane for a trip maybe twice before my 18th birthday, and my family was nowhere close to poor. For someone raised with very little, OP sounds spoiled as heck. No kidding. My family was solidly middle class, but we surely didn't have elaborate vacations while I was growing up. And that certainly doesn't mean I was deprived or we were poor. Something tells me OP is grossly exaggerating how poor she was growing up. More likely her family was working class or lower middle class. She needs to get over her entitlement. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not paying for my daughter to start yet another degree? My wife and I have 3 daughters. We always told them we would pay for their college tuitions provided they wanted to go. Our eldest, Hazel, graduated in 2018. She started at a 4-year university and lasted there 6 months before dropping out and coming home. We had to eat a lot of fees because by that point they were non-refundable. Her reason for dropping out was that she didn't want to pursue that major anymore. We told her she could switch to undecided or general studies until she did figure it out, but she insisted on dropping out. From there, she enrolled in the local community college, which was cheaper, but as we didn't qualify for financial aid, we were paying for all of it. She stayed through till the world fell apart in 2020. She tried online schooling, but it was too hard and we respected that. Our younger two were struggling with virtual school. I can't imagine how hard college was. She took some time off, then in January of this year, started at another 4-year college. Keep in mind, only some of her credits transferred, but we were supportive. Last month, she came to us and said she wants to drop out yet again and go to cosmetology school. I have nothing against that, but after spending tens of thousands of dollars on these other schools, she's got to pay her own way on this one. I told her if she finishes and gets her license, I will reimburse her, but she needs to figure out how to finance it on her own. She asked how she's supposed to do that, and I told her to get a job. She got upset and said I'm going back on my word. It doesn't help that this year our middle daughter graduated, and we're paying for her to go to a 4-year college. Hazel said this isn't fair, and I said I'd do the same to her sister if she was as wishy-washy. Now, Hazel won't talk to me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You've given her a chance and a backup. There comes a time when we all have to stand on our own 2 feet. Would Hazel qualify for an apprenticeship? Those aren't a thing around here. Cosmetology school is certainly cheaper than a 4-year school. Why not determine how much she would have cost at her 4-year school, and if she hasn't hit there, offer the rest as a kind of education budget? She's more than hit what a 4-year school would be. Not the a-hole. You've paid for 3 false starts. She can pay for the rest. And they're willing to compensate her if she finishes. That's a better deal than I ever got. Totally agree. She has to learn to finish what she starts. She'll just do this again if OP agrees to her demands. Not the a-hole. You did pay. Twice already. She has a pattern of not finishing what she starts. I wouldn't want to pay for a 3rd shot either. You didn't say I'll pay all schooling for all time, no matter how many different paths you take, and she shouldn't pretend that you did. You're right that if she's serious about this, she'll pay for it since she's now been given reassurance. You'll reimburse her if she finishes. You're still offering to pay, but only after she shows she's serious about it and has completed it, not before. You're being more generous than I would be at that point. You still have 2 other kids to pay for, and maybe she'll finally understand how generous you've been if she has to foot the bill for once. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for cutting my daughter's financial support off and monitoring every cent she spends? I'm so livid right now about the entire situation that I can't see straight and make a fair judgment. My daughter is heading off to college this year. I and my wife both decided years ago that if/when she went to college, we did not want her working to support herself. Well, now that time has come, and we've been working on ways to make sure she can fully focus on her education. I and my wife budgeted out a monthly allowance for her, along with her tuition payments. A big part of this is that I want to also teach her to budget out her money and figure out how to handle her own purchasing. While she was still going to live at home while she went to school, and it was made clear that though she could still eat with us and use some of our stuff, we expect her to start buying her own necessities and prepare her food. We also cut back on our grocery bill to an appropriate amount to only cover I, my wife, and our other child. We decided this would take effect in June, and made sure for months that she would be ready for it. We taught her how to balance a checkbook, income versus expenses, the basics of cooking, etc. To say the first month was a disaster is an understatement. Within only 11 days, she had blown through her entire monthly allowance. This was not an insignificant amount either. We gave her $1,000 and she blew through it in 11 days. She does not pay any rent, utilities, health insurance, etc. She had no clue how she blew through that much money, but I figured it out incredibly quickly. She spent $500 alone eating out, $300 at Walmart and who knows what, and the rest on gas somehow. Again, in a car she does not pay for at all. She then asked if it would be possible to increase the amount of money she was being given. I lost it. I held nothing back and told her there was no way in hell this was going to happen again. The experiment was over, and there was no way I was going to give her a single cent of unsupervised money. We spent months teaching her, and I mean literally every weekend I was teaching her how to be a responsible adult. I told her that I was the most disappointed in her I have ever been at that moment, and she knows I feel I have failed as a parent. We are not rich, never have been. $500 out of every one of my paychecks is a very, very noticeable amount. I've been monitoring her like a hawk ever since. I give her no more than $20 cash, and if she ever wants to use her card, she needs to tell me the exact amount so I can transfer it over. This has not been easy and has caused strain in our relationship. I just tell her now she can get a job if she wants, because then at least it's her own money. Now though, I'm getting backlash from extended family who have learned what's going on. My wife is in firm agreement, but now I'm second-guessing myself. Edit, the amount of money I gave her is rightfully being looked at. It was way too much, and I think I realized that probably soon after she spent it all. My budgeting, in my mind, was $300 for groceries, $200 for other essential purchases, $200 for gas, and $300 for school-related purchases / surplus money. I overshot but didn't care because I thought whatever she had left over could go into savings, and she could have a good chunk of savings just in case. What this has taught me is that I've taken this personally and allowed myself to become nihilistic towards my daughter. Her attitude set this all off, and I feel that is truly what I could not forgive about this. My parents never would have dreamed to do this with me, so when she spends $120 at a steakhouse paying for her friends, when we have not gone out to a steakhouse like that pretty much ever as a family, I felt disrespected that she dared ask for more money. I was naive to give her $1,000 like this, or to really expect that this adulting experiment would have worked out. Gonna step back and rethink what my priorities should actually be and what I need to take away from this all. I have to say, you're the a-hole. You waiting until your daughter was 18.5 years old to start teaching her any kind of basic adult life skills? No freaking wonder she's not good at it. If you wanted her to be a plug-and-play functioning adult, you should have started years ago. You only have yourself to blame for this. Also, one failure and then you conclude she'll never learn? Not if she isn't given the chance to learn. Was she stupid with her money? Yes. But then she needs to feel the consequences of not being able to do anything or go anywhere because she can't afford it for the next 20 days. I'm not saying give her more money, but you basically showed her swimming videos, then dropped her at the deep end of a pool, and when she struggled, you scolded her, pulled her out, and forbade her from ever going to the pool again. Micromanaging is teaching her nothing but resentment. Exactly. She's never had a chance to actually spend money on her own. They should have started sooner and with a smaller budget. She has to learn by doing. Otherwise, she's going to have zero control over her financial habits once she's on her own. Everyone sucks here. It was first month and she did a big screw-up, yes. But if she's only allowed to screw up once, you're setting her up for failure. This. Also, did they brought her to food shopping before all of this? Does she know how to cook at all? If the answer to both questions is no, no wonder she went on to grab food from takeout. She probably doesn't know how to manage stuff. And while she can't be totally excused, this is a good time to teach her how to do those stuff. Opie's response is way too extreme and will not teach the kid to be responsible with money, and can in the long term prepare the kid to be financially mistreated under someone else's, because the thought is, I am not responsible enough with money, and I need to be under the supervision of someone else.